Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Jada Cook and I do this, okay?
Wanna come home 'cause you're missing the Kool-Aid. Don't you wanna come home?
But as you can tell by today's title, we're gonna talk about something that I have held off for a very long time. My very first week of college, freshman year, I was sexually assaulted. This is kind of weird for the fact that the situation that happened to me happened about 3 years ago, and I'm just now feeling comfortable telling my story. I'm just now telling really close people in my life about what happened to me yesterday. I say this to say that to anyone who's watching, if you're a victim of sexual assault in any form, you're not alone, and don't feel pressured to tell your story if you're not ready to tell your story. Okay. Before I go into the story or the details or whatever, I just want to start off by saying that sexual assault, rape, it's all a spectrum. Not everyone's experience, not everyone's story, not everyone's struggle, if you want to call it, is the same. Yeah, like I said, rape is a spectrum, and it doesn't just happen in the way that is perceived to happen in movies or in TV or anything like that. I feel like the stereotypical way that rape happens is there's a girl, she can either be intoxicated or just like not in her right state of mind, or just like really lonely and frail and rigid, and then a guy comes along and just takes advantage of her, and most times it's like completely forceful and this, that, and the third, but that's not the case for all rape situations or sexual assault situations, and I just want to point that out before going into my story. But in real life, chances are if you were sexually assaulted, it was by someone that you knew, someone that you know, someone that you trusted with who you are, trusted with yourself. Sexual assault isn't always what it's made out to be, and I wish that stigma of sexual assault would be ruined. Before I get into my story is my own, and I feel as though you can try to tell me what I should have done. You can try and question why I didn't do something, why I did something. You can question anything about me and myself, but at the end of the day, my story is mine, not yours. And what happened to me, it's very much real regardless of the magnitude or to the extent that you take it. My story is mine, and that's that. There was a point in my life after the situation happened where I went completely numb. I detached myself from reality, and I didn't allow myself to understand what was going on around me. I kind of just thought, well, I didn't even think about what it was. I just made my life into, well, this is what it's going to be, or this is what it should be. I detached myself from my story, and that's okay. I detached myself from my story, and I think that was my first error. The guy who did this to me, after the situation happened, I learned that he was very close with someone that I grew up with in my childhood. And he probably doesn't understand the magnitude of the situation, and he doesn't even know how I feel about the situation because we don't talk, we don't communicate, and I've never told him. The only way that he would actually know is if somehow this video got back to him or got back to someone that he knows and people put two and two together. But other than that, he has no idea, and that's just that on that. So this situation happened my freshman year of college. Like I stated, it was my very first week of school. So I'm going throughout school. Obviously, I'm a freshman and I'm just now graduating on my own. I have this new level of freedom that I haven't quite experienced yet. And being in college, I I'm trying to figure out who I am as a person. I'm trying to understand myself. I'm trying to just figure out who is Jada outside of the four walls of her home, outside of who she was in high school. Like, who do I want to be and how am I going to show that? That's what most people who are freshmen, that's the one struggle that I feel like most freshmen have, or that should be the only struggle, the only question that someone that young has to ask himself, like, who am I and who do I want to be in this world? Imagine going through that and then adding on a traumatic situation on top of that. This happened, or maybe school started Monday. This happened, I don't even remember the date, but maybe let's say Wednesday, Thursday, first week of school. Me and two of my friends that I had met, we were hanging out with this group of guys. And the guys, you know, they were cool. Like, there was no weird energy there. There weren't any red flags. Like, honestly and truly, we were all just kicking it. Like, we'd be playing Uno, or we would just like hang out somewhere and just like chill. Like, they were a pretty cool group of like individuals. So it comes to a point where like me and this guy, like, I thought he was cute. He thought I was cute. I was kind of like, okay, well, let's just like hang out, me and you. Keep in mind, before this incident, I had never had any sexual experiences. I had never had sex with anyone. This guy took my virginity. So, you know, we're chilling, and it's me and him in his room. He was studying or like doing homework, something. I don't really recall exactly what it was that he was doing, but we weren't near each other. I was on my phone laying down. I recall this. I was on my phone on his bed. I was laying on his bed. I was laying down. All I know is that, or all I remember really, is that he stopped what he was doing and came over to me and like gave me a massage, so to speak, or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, like, it's really nothing. It's cool. Me and him haven't had any like sexual connections. We haven't done anything to allude that like, okay, yeah, it's time for us to have sex. It's time for us to do this, that, and the third. None of that happened. If anything, we're just getting to know each other. We're hanging out, finding out things about each other. He gave me a massage. And I'm like, okay, this is fine, whatever. He didn't like pass any boundaries. He didn't do anything that made me feel uncomfortable until he did. All I know is that within the blink of an eye, it went from his hands touching my body to him being inside of my body. Blink of an eye. When it happened, I kind of had this instant like stun, like an instant kind of shock, like, is this what I think it is? Is this, is this actually happening? I looked down, back, whatever you want to call it, to understand exactly what was going on. And I'm like, I was confirmed, like, yeah, this is exactly what's going on. I moved away, and all I remember is he grabbing me. And I remember asking something around the lines of like, what are you doing? Like, essentially like, hey, like, what are you doing? I remember his response, and he looked at me and went, I mean, it was bound to happen anyway, right? I was so naive and I was so stupid, and I was so oblivious to what was happening with me that I allowed him to. And looking back at it, like, I can call myself stupid. I can say, Jada, you easily could have walked away. You easily could have run. But you don't know what you would do in a situation until it's actually happening to you. All I remember is that he continued to do his thing, and I just laid there. I just let him. And in that moment, I kind of went numb. That was the exact moment that I went numb, that I detached myself, my feelings from reality and from what was happening in the situation. I just remember at the time I felt no pleasure. I felt nothing. I just I just remember when it was over, and I was stuck to the point where I stayed. I stayed and I just laid there to myself, not understanding, not thinking, not trying to process what was happening or what happened. I was physically there, but mentally I was planets away. Um, after after that situation happened, um, I still hung out with him and with the group of friends that he was involved with. I still hung out with him. And you can ask or you can question, like, well, that's where you're wrong. You're stupid for doing this, you're stupid for doing that. You put this upon yourself. You know exactly what you're doing. You can say whatever it is that you want about me, but you weren't there. You didn't experience the situation. Who are you to tell me what I could and couldn't have done, what I should and should have done? And especially, who are you to say, well, you put this upon yourself, you did this to yourself? Because how? I never asked for this to happen to me. And yeah, I went about my situation in a way that maybe most didn't, but that goes back to sexual assault is a spectrum, and it doesn't happen in the way that you think it always does. But yeah, I continued hanging out with these people. I continued hanging out with this boy, continued hanging out with him, just me and him. After, I kind of felt like I owed him something at that point. I felt like he took a part of me, and I wasn't ready to let that part of me go. If I were, or if I was ready, it would have been gone. But I wasn't ready to let that part of me go, and I felt like I owed it to him to continue to be present for whatever it is that he needed, because he was my first attachment. Like, he was my first attachment. He was the first person that my body was shared with, if that makes sense. I I personally wasn't ready to feel like a statistic. I know that. I didn't want to feel like a statistic. I didn't want to feel like, I didn't want the reality of the situation to set in. And then I realized, like, hey, Jada, this isn't okay. Like, this wasn't how this is supposed to happen. I turned the situation into a, well, maybe this is what sex is supposed to feel like. Maybe this is what sex is supposed to be like. Maybe this is how sex happens. And I wouldn't have known that until I experienced it. I made it a, okay, Jada, you're fine. It was supposed to happen this way. Continue going on about your life. So yeah, I had sex with the guy after the situation happened, and I can say for sure that every time that it happened, it was never me initiating the activity. It was never me saying that I wanted it to happen. It kind of just happened, and once again, that's when my mind shut off and my body was just there. Now, I do remember the last time I was starting to understand exactly what was happening to me, and I was starting to understand the fact that my body was getting taken advantage of. There was a time where sexual activity was happening, and all of a sudden I snapped out of it and I pushed him. Jada before Jada now was a good 96 pounds. Maybe I was literally in between 96 and 100. My weight was fluctuating. This guy used to play sports. He was very like muscular. He was bigger than me. I tried pushing him off and it didn't work. And I told him that if he continued, I would scream, I would yell. And this man, no, not even a man, this little boy said to me, that's what I want you to do. I want you to scream. In that moment, I kind of realized, like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And Jada, like, you're not safe. You're not okay. And I left. It was really weird for me because this was the first person whose body I've ever felt or experienced in that way. And I kind of just felt like I didn't want to seem like just a person that he took advantage of. And in order to feel mentally okay, or in order to not feel like I was just a victim of sexual assault, I felt like I had to keep giving the person my body regardless of how it made me feel on the inside. Regardless of how it made me feel on the inside, regardless of what the severity of the situation was, I just felt like I had to. I felt like I had to give pieces of myself to someone who was not deserving. I gave parts of myself to someone who didn't deserve my body and took advantage of me and who I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my place, my role in life. I didn't have the confidence that I have now. I didn't love myself then the way that I do now. And I let him. I let him. Okay. Yeah. So after that last time, it didn't happen anymore. I didn't hang out with that group of friends anymore. I still didn't understand fully what the situation is. I feel as though the only reason I do now is because years have passed and I finally allowed myself to feel and to understand exactly what it was that I went through. Freshman year, I still didn't understand. I just knew that a part of me changed and I was no longer the Jada that I was before coming into college. After that, I was not like myself. I did things that I felt like I never would have done if I never experienced that situation. I didn't love myself. Yeah. Second semester comes around and I meet someone who allows me to start finally understanding the severity of my situation, that allows me to understand like this isn't what intimacy is supposed to be like. This isn't what intimacy is supposed to feel like. And for some, like, if you can have casual sex, if you can have sex with no emotions, no attachments, that's fine. Do you, power to your body. But for me, I wasn't like that. And I think that's why I forced myself to try to feel something towards the situation and towards that person, because I knew that I didn't have it in me to just have sex and not have a care in the world about my emotions, my feelings, or anything like that. So I finally started to understand the severity of my situation, and that's when I finally understood, Jada, something has to change. This isn't okay. With this being said, I still didn't tell my story. I still didn't allow myself to get closure from the situation because I kind of just wanted to forget that it happened. Sophomore year comes and it was kind of like an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. I never saw him because he didn't go to the school anymore. And I thought, okay, my problems are gone. My situation's I'm fine. And I competed in a pageant that really allowed me to understand who I was. I met the most amazing women, and I really finally started understanding Jada, that's not okay. It's not okay that I told someone no and they tried to tell me otherwise. It's not okay that someone tried to belittle my emotions and my feelings. It's not okay that I didn't love myself enough to pull myself out of the situation. But with that being said, I'm not going to make it seem like he's the victim. There was at a point where I didn't want to tell anyone what happened to me because I just didn't want to cause conflict. I didn't want to create problems in his life because I was still trying to spare his feelings regardless of how he felt about mine. I didn't want attention on myself. I didn't want attention on the situation because I was scared of what people would say about me. I was scared of what people would say about my situation. I was scared that people would make my story not seem valid. But then I finally started telling people. I finally started to tell my story. I finally started to understand who I was and who I am. I was finally able to let go. Junior year comes, we're in the present now. I am walking to class, and for the first time since that last time I saw him, and I had the biggest panic attack in the world. I ran to the bathroom and I literally could not catch my breath. Like, there was such a struggle to breathe. I then realized, like, Jada, you're not okay. After seeing him and after having that initial panic attack, I've seen him around campus like other times, and I didn't have those feelings anymore because I finally took the time to really process what happened to me and to really understand what it was that happened. I kept my story such a secret for such a long time, and I feel like I'm at a point now where I have a platform to show people that your story is valid and your story matters. And no matter how someone might try to spin it, no matter how others take it, sexual assault in no form is okay. And I'm sorry to myself for putting you through that and for not snapping out of the numbness and the shock sooner. I'm sorry to me. I couldn't come to terms with my situation fully until I told my story, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I've gotten to a place now where I can actually breathe. I understand that that's not what love, that's not to say that we were in love because we weren't, not to say that I loved him because I didn't, but that's not what intimacy, that's not what someone's first time should have been like, and that was mine. And I hated for the longest that that's the experience that I got to say was my first time. I can appreciate those that have made me feel loved even after the situation. I've learned that yes, I have been bruised, but I'm not broken. And I just want to tell my story to others to let you know that you're not alone. And it's okay if you don't want to tell your story. It's okay if you feel like you're trapped in your head and there's no one out there that knows what you're going through, or no one out there that can imagine the feelings that you're going through. There's so many people, and it sucks to say that sexual assault and rape is becoming the norm, or is becoming here goes another one of those stories. And that sucks because men take such advantage of women and our bodies and of who we are, and that's not okay. Never let someone question you as a victim. Never let someone question what happened to you or your story, because what happened to you is valid. And yes, it may take time for you to understand. It may take time for you to build yourself back up again, but you don't have to do it alone. And I just want people to know that I have a platform now where I can speak out on my story. I can be vulnerable. I can be open with you all. I can be open with those who I come across with, because I knew what it was like to feel like I didn't have anyone to talk to. And I don't want any of you, if you've ever experienced this, to feel like you're alone out there, because you're not. I feel like there's so much more that I wanted to say in this video, and I don't even know if I explained the situation to the fullest, but like, I'm at a place now where I can appreciate me and I can respect me, and I love me enough to know what I deserve to put up with and what I shouldn't. And I know that there are going to be people, that are going to ask the questions like, well, why didn't you contact the police? Why didn't you tell your family? Why didn't you report it? Why didn't you do this, that, and the third? I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to make the situation a reality, and that's okay. That's okay. It's kind of disrespectful to think like when people belittle or like place less value on your story or on your situation or try to discredit you for things that you've gone through. The strength that women carry within themselves and within their bodies is greater than any man out here. There's a quote from this book of poetry that I was given, and I've kind of been saying that to myself daily as a daily mantra to just remind myself that I'm still growing and I'm still okay. It goes, I am rough around the edges. I am imperfect in my thought process. I am a work in progress, but I am still worthy of love and all of its sweetness. And I say that to remind myself that yes, I'm growing. I'm still understanding me as a person. I'm still understanding. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. And just because I haven't reached that point yet, or just because I might grow at a different rate than someone else, or just because I haven't figured it all out, doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of being loved, and doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of greatness. I've been reading a lot of books, a lot of poetry that's just like helped me finally like piece and place myself together, and I've just finally been able to tell myself that I admire myself and who I am and who I'm becoming. I finally understand who I am on the inside, and that's reflecting and showing on the outside. I know that I've been bruised, but that does not make me broken. And for that, I'm the definition of strength and resilience. No one's like me. No one's capable of being captivating like me. No one is capable. No one can do it like me. And that's just that. That's what makes me powerful. I'm healing, and for some that might be really scary because they've never met a girl like me. They've never met a woman like me who's capable of being broken, being beaten, but is somehow still able to put herself back together using nothing but self-love. Nothing but self-love. Women like me don't exist by accident. Women like me are walking scriptures. I can let life's aches and burdens and struggles and heartaches and just everything negative about life, I can let that harden me, but somehow I remain soft, and that is a testimony within itself. I am rough around the edges. I'm imperfect in my thought process. I am a work in progress, but I am still worthy of love and all of its sweetness. I'm a powerful force. I'm unstoppable. I'm walking poetry. I am art in celestial form. I'm better than I was yesterday, but not quite as great as I will be tomorrow. I love me. And that's just that on that.